There we go. All right. Good morning, guys. Ken at Tortoise Capital. This is Creativity 202 check-in session for Lesson 3, March 12th, 2023. So we'll get started with some quick check-ins. Appreciate your patience. Good morning, Ernie. What's up?
Good morning. Everything's good where I'm at. Good day. Now I'm going to start it out an hour off, but it's a good start.
Yeah, yeah, I wonder if what time do you guys have it? Do you have it at 10 Central right now? I'm wondering if the my computer automatically adjusted the time.
10:10. Yes, sir.
Okay. That's the adjusted time?
Yep.
Okay. Well, my computer's smarter than me then. My wife, I guess, changed all the clocks in the house. She went and took the girls to breakfast and left me on my own. Get up at 8 to take care of the dogs. She says, "Now don't forget your 10 o'clock." Yes, dear. Crunch right back to sleep. And it didn't have the alarm set. It just kind of spazzed my eyes open at 10 o'clock exactly. Anyway, that's my check-in. I'm tired here. Good morning, Jeff.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, it's a rainy day in Louisiana, so when it's raining here, it's pretty unpleasant outside. But I was pretty tired at the end of the week, so glad to get a good night's sleep. And I guess today will just be recharging and relaxing. So
Yeah. Uh-huh. Good morning, Damien. What's up?
Uh, Damien is surviving. No, I'm sick, Ken, so I may have to leave and go back and so on. The whole house has been sick for the whole week,
Yeah.
so I think I'm catching the bug, which is okay.
Well,
It's part of
well, we hope
life.
you feel better. We hope you
Yeah.
feel better. Chun Long, what's up?
Hi, good morning. I actually get a half hour more sleep today because I turn off my alarm. I get natural wake up. I would I look at my cell phone, found out it's 1.5 hour later.
Mm,
How what happened? I just wondered. Oh,
yeah. And good morning, Tom. How are you doing today?
Uh, Good morning. Doing I'm hanging in here. I stayed up a little late, and then of course clock went forward, so I woke up. The dogs had to get walked, and a nice coyote walked in front of us to really wake me up.
Yeah.
And but a little snow, but everything's good. I hope.
Do you care anything for coyotes when you're walking?
Yeah, I considered it. Bring some treats and toss some stuff like some duck jerky or something to it. But uh, then when I do have the treat with me, the coyotes aren't around, and then when I don't, they decide to come out and say hello. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I use a metal tip 5 foot walking stick, and
uh,
and I'll take my chances.
yeah.
Basically, a spear.
Well, I had a couple in front of my house when I walked out the door. I had one right in front, and then another one down the block. It's like, wow, that's the first time I've seen them in front. Usually I go around the lake, and
Yeah.
then there's a couple of young ones, and then another one. But they don't seem to be intimidated by us at all. They just go about their business and actually look at us like, hey, what? Why are them dogs barking at me or something? So.
Yeah. Yeah, we have 'em around here. The trouble of them is, there's no such thing as one coyote.
No.
That's what you got to worry about around here too. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and move us into the room, and and get the show on the road here. So, and here we go. Ernie.
Well, I just wanted you to know I prepared stuff and I've thrown it out the window because I think it was yesterday that I really kind of got into this a little bit further. Um, First of all, I think it might have been me that broke the camera last week. I went back and listened to the replays, which I always enjoy doing. And then since the camera didn't work, I listened to it with my eyes closed. And it's really it's a different experience because whenever I did it, I guess because you're not seeing or your other senses kind of kick in, and so I kind of getting into feeling what I was hearing, and it's for me it was a neat experience. It was a different perspective. Really enjoyed listening to everyone's presentation again, and really hearing it. It was good. I did it with both sessions, including the Tuesday night, and it's amazing. I just find it to be an amazing experience. And then for today's lesson, people would always talk about, and I feel this way too, that what we're doing applies to more than just investing, that it also applies to everyday life. But this time I decided that I was saying that the lessons are timely, but now I think they're more timeless. And what I did, I was approaching the lesson about the trader exercise. You see a clear opportunity to take a trade that is not part of your current plan. I was going over the Silicon Valley bank situation, and having gone through this lesson, once I started reading about the bank experience, I had a different perspective on it. First of all, I realized how inadequate I am, that so many things that I don't know about, and that the investing world there's so much involved. And I feel inadequate in some ways, but I still feel like I'm up to the challenge. I can still invest and do well. I mean, I've invested for a number of years and I've done fine. And I'd like to do better, but it's reality is, I mean, I guess I realized that the bank situation, just as life is, that it's just overwhelming sometimes, because you watch the weather in California. I'm here in Missouri, and I think it's a terrible situation. You see people that lose their homes, and it's tragic, and so I'm watching the bank situation, and to me, that's an unimaginable thing. I've never I didn't go through the Depression. To put your money in the bank and then realize you can't get to your money, that's pretty big. And so I've been applying the lesson to that situation, and it really changed my outlook. Because I think that they talked about creative thinking isn't the enemy of compliance, that it's a source of compliance, and it's what invented the current regulations, and it's why those regulations work. I wondered about the people that had that experience in California, because I'm reading things in the Wall Street Journal, and they're talking about people are blaming the regulations. They were too strict, and then somebody else comes along and says, well, now they're too loose, and and the blame is going all in different directions. But I'm thinking, that guy that probably has a business, put his money in that bank, and now is being told that he can't get to that money. He didn't lose his money, or her money, but it's just that we can't take care of it right away. And that person put that dollar in the bank thinking that they can pay their employees. And the fact that the bank bought something that won't come back for 10 years doesn't make any difference to that poor person that has to make their payment. So reality is a big part of what we're doing, with our money. We're investing it. And I guess I have more of an appreciation of what's going on that I didn't have before. And so I thought that this really kind of gave me a different perspective, and I was kind of surprised by that. And that, that just happened yesterday. And like I said, I wanted to talk about seizing Hill 102 and things like that. But I remember going through school and was so looked forward to graduating, and that wouldn't have to be going through all of that agony. And I get out into the real world, and then you find out that your education didn't stop when you graduated. That was just the beginning. So this was Silicon Valley Bank has really, it's kind of given me a different perspective. And I appreciate that. It brought me back to the real world, made me realize that, we all have different approaches to life. And I appreciate that. And I'm starting to appreciate that how important it is for me to take responsibilities of what I'm doing with my dollar. I want to watch my dollar, and I want to make sure that I don't lose my dollar. And my dollar is becoming a lot more important to me now after all of this. And it also, I think that because I was going through the questions, and that's really why I had this epiphany or different approach. I was going, if the trade goes on to win, why didn't you take it? I'm taking those questions a lot more serious than maybe I did before. I'm going through that step-by-step process in my evaluating what I did wrong and how I approach it. And for some reason, I feel like, am I really being as serious about this as I should be? When it talks about identify your data requirements, do I really know what my data requirements are? Identify your decision criteria, and did I rehearse my decision? And did I visualize the outcome? I'm taking that more seriously. And I don't remember, I'm sure it was a coach that told me this, but I remember the thought came to my mind that training makes you sweat, but reality will make you bleed. And I've been thinking about that, and I've been thinking about that with with my investing, that it's a real life situation out there. It's not a story, it's not a theory, but it's reality. So I know that's kind of weird, but and maybe it was the weekend and not sleeping much, but I really, and I'm kind of looking forward to digging into the bank situation more and trying to understand that more and appreciate it more, because I am involved. Just little, and what happens in California, what happens in the government affects me, and so I appreciate being brought back to earth with that. And and I'll say aho.
It was a tie, but Chun Long had the first step.
Hi, good morning. My word of week last week is purpose. That's to remind me, often the time we forget the purpose and focus on the means of the, sometimes you get angry when you want to be happy just because situations changes. Pay attention to situations instead of the purpose. That's the usual way. I feel I need to pay attention to purpose more. Like trading, whatever, the method, the strategy, the pattern is, the purpose is to make money, not lose money. But how to achieve that purpose? That's all what I'm trying to master about. So the purpose for those weeks and months is to practice, achieve mastery of trading. So today's lessons is, very relevant to what I'm doing. So for the past 5 weeks, I try to do the collapse dragon kata challenge. So my rule is simple. So only take the collapse dragon pattern. The collapsing dragon pattern is not that often if we stick to the rules. So the rule is the RL10 make a lower high and break down to the belly of the RL10. If I follow that, there are not many collapsing dragon. For some days, there's not even one collapsed dragon. The question is, before the collapsed dragon pattern, there's a pocket entry. Do I take it? Do I not take it? So after a collapsed dragon, there's a SSC emerged from the pattern. Do I take it? Do I not take it? So that's how today's lesson relevant. So my learning is how to understand the rules in different ways. So what is the meaning of my rules? So the first layer of that is I have to follow my rules. The second layer of that is how do I understand the rule? How do I put my rule in perspective? Then the next layer is why I have the rules. The rules is to make money or just practice. So if I have different purpose or objective for my practice, the meaning of my rules changes. That's my understanding of today's lessons. I read it twice, tried to finish the trader's exercise, but didn't have all the time. So next week, I will continue my collapsing dragon. I will use today's lesson exercise, trader exercise as a go-by template to assess my trading. I haven't done much to journal my feelings and my thoughts. That's what exactly I need to do because it's my feelings and my thoughts lead to my mistakes. Currently, my mistake defined as not to follow my rules, which is take other patterns. So today's lesson make me, see more perspective of the patterns. How to read the patterns in perspective. In today's price action, put into this week's action, or even longer time frames. Anyway, I will continue my exercise. Watch last week the market action. I normally I feel anxiety about the market action like last week, last 2 days, but over time I kind of get over that feelings, feel better. I pay attention to my exercise, my practice. The opportunity will come when I'm ready. That's my thought about the big collapsing dragon pattern everywhere last week. I hope.
Tom.
My word from last week was intention, and my intention was to stay with my plan and with the process. And I think this week I pretty much did, so I was all good with that. I went over the lesson, and I looked up the internet. I wanted to find out more about Dixon Miles, I think his name was, the general or colonel that was at Harper Ferry, and I guess his name was Lieutenant Grimes, I believe. So anyway, what I did, there's a nice history on it, and General Miles, he was like, he did a lot of Indian campaigns, and he was actually, from my calculation, was about 38 years he was like in the military, or he had been fighting, so he had a long career. And I did say that he was at a failed campaign that somebody accused him of being drunk, and so he was held back, and then he got this job at the Battle of Bull Run, where he gave him, he surrendered his troops, which was one of the largest surrenders during the Civil War, maybe even after that. So, and he did die after that. I think he did say he died. He died after that battle. From a wound. So, and why? And well, it's a rough time. And then I think it was on Grimes. He went on to he was a lot younger. Maybe in like, I got it in here. It's he had three brothers that were in the Confederate Army. He was raised by his uncle because his parents died at a young age. But I guess during the Civil War, he decided to stay on the northern side. And he didn't obey the order to stand down and surrender. So he took his cavalry, and they got through the lines, and actually, I know it's in the article. He did. They captured a supply chain or a wagon train that was with the Confederates, I mean, he used, I guess it was at nighttime, and he used his accent to convince the wagon train, whoever was in charge, that, hey, yeah, that we got to change direction and go this direction. And then in the morning, I guess they pull out their guns and they said, hey, you're coming with us, you're captured. So I thought that was really interesting. And actually, he later on, I'm not sure if it was during that war, but he did die later on in battle from wounds. So, but his creativity was used to really make that total defeat at Bull Run into not a total loss, because of the way he used his accent and his creativity to capture the supplies and move them for a win in a small way, in a big battle, or it was a win of a battle in a big war. So that was really interesting. And with the market, I mean, and well, so then we go on to the next situation. It goes into, I think the question was about giving up. All right, it was like, are there things in my system? Do I do things for my job that are unbreakable rules? Okay. And so I was thinking about that in my life. I was like, yeah, I'd like, over time, I made some certain rules. I don't want to miss work. I want to make it there on time. I don't take, I mean, I don't take sick days unless I'm sick, and do things like that. And are there situations, or is there, if situations come up, what would cause me to break my rules, where I would make it, like, use is the exercise? And yeah, I was really thinking about that. And I was like, yeah, I mean, there were some days like last week, I'm like, oh, Friday's going to be a big day in the market. And I was like, well, my rule's not, I got to go in because I'm not sick. And so instead of taking a day off, call off, and I didn't. I could go to work, and then I watched the market during the day, and I'm like, man, I knew I should have taken off. But that's because of this fixed mindset that I have these rules that I got to follow, and I don't want to change. But it kind of makes me think of ways to change things in my life for the better, which this course really is instilling in me that I need to do. And I guess I'm a slow learner, because the second time around, these things are starting to stick, so that's good. One of the things phrase that I heard this week was, sometimes when you're spread too thin, that sometimes it's better you got to give up something good for something better. And so, like, I guess the rules are good, but if you're involved in a lot of things and you're focused all over the place, maybe it's better to give up something that is good, but there's something on the outside that will really make big advances in what you're doing, or what you want to do to benefit your life. On a trade or exercise, the situation is you see a clear opportunity to take a trade that is not part of your current plan. And it's kind of funny, because I'm really forcing myself to stay with my plan, which is to watch 4 stocks all week. But I have done this in the past, and actually I did do this week. So how often does it happen to you? it's like if the market's not moving and I don't see a lot of things happening, I might go down and do a look at the summary. I mean, lately it hasn't happened. A lot of things are moving, but when it does happen and the market seems to be idle in stocks, then I'll look at and see what's moving, what sectors, and it happens. Well, it has happened. I'll put it that way. I'm more focused on things I'm doing right now, but it has happened in the past. And how did the urge come to my attention? It was like I'm sitting there and nothing's happening, and I was like, well, I had to look around, and because I mean, I want to follow something in the market or find something. I don't know whether it's excitement or just see an opportunity that's presenting itself. If I take the urge, if I act on the urge to take something new and unplanned, then how does it feel if it wins? Well, I'm trying to take the feelings out, but I mean, I'm happy it wins, and then if it loses, then I accept the loss. So I'm trying to take out the feelings of wins and loss. I mean, I'm happy it's winning, of course, because my object is to be profitable. Do I return to the existing plan? I have in the past, and then one thing that has happened to me in the past is if I do things like this, and I'll get locked into something, and then later on come back and see, wow, this moved. I missed my move. I missed my opportunity because I was playing around over here, and so that kind of bothered me when those things would happen. So I kind of want to really focus on a plan, and I'm not watching a lot of charts at the same time. If I could put 5 charts up and watch 4 and have the one that I'm playing with, then it's different. But when you're working on a mobile device, it's hard. You can't do that. Do these intuitions affect your risk management and capital allocation? Well, the one thing before I take I'll use the PSR and look at my risk. So I'll use the same risk on the trade. So no, it doesn't. Do the results from earlier in the day affect your decisions? They have affected my decisions in the past. I'm trying to take that out of my trading, and this trade as the day goes on, and just like a trader, as a professional. And I do watch the time of the day I'm in. I've noticed a lot of movement, like 10:30, 11, maybe 11:30, 11 o'clock. It seems like second. Maybe New York's coming off lunch or something, but it seems like all of a sudden we'll start getting a move. After about 10 o'clock, it seems to go slow. I saw Ken's, he has nice information on the time of day when opportunities present themselves. If I resist the urge to take a trade, how do I feel if the trade goes on to win? If I didn't take it, the trade goes on to lose. If I don't take it, do I track how many times these intuitions pay off? Unfortunately, I don't track how many times it happens. And yeah, at the end of the day, I'll look at the trade and see what it did. If it won, then I mark it. I just mark it as, hey, there was an opportunity there. Maybe I should have taken it. But it doesn't meet the parameters of my system. The important thing is it in my system, and are the parameters in there? It's just not like something to jump into. So it has to fit my framing. If it goes on to lose, but I didn't take it, then I look at why and what can I learn from it. Is there something in there that I didn't see? I try to use them as learning opportunities. Do your intuitions come from your existing indicator framework? Yes. and some other price observations. It might be earnings or the sector's hot that day. Is there a positive feeling or excitement or worry that you might soon miss the chance? I used to have the fear of missing out or seeing something move and want to jump in. But if we use the framework right, and I started seeing that this was like a Z3 excursion already, and there might not be a lot left. If I did something like that and I'd seen it reverse really quick, I'd be out in a second. So I'm trying to make myself aware of how far extended it is. I did take I seen a real far extent. It was funny. I did see one that was really extended to the downside, and I took a real short trade on it to the upside. I was thinking of the Anderson expand Kim's system where it expands so much it's going to come back like a rubber band. So I did get in that. I did get in that for a short trade, but at the end of the day, I did look at it and I saw, well, yeah, good thing I got out because then it did continue to the downside. So it's a really nice idea to do, and it helps to have rules that avoid big losses. But overall, if it's really overextended, I try to avoid taking it unless I could watch all day. What is it? What do you enjoy about overriding your rules? I don't really. I mean, the rules are there to protect me, so I won't override them too much. But I got to have a really good reason. Trading is a good reason to override my rules for my job. I'm about ready to retire, so and seeing what's going on in the market is another good reason. Like I'm trying to take a macro view and a micro view of the situation in the world and where it could go, how things are going with the banking system and everything else. There's a lot of things going on that I'm looking at. So and the rest, I really didn't get much farther than that. The worst thing that could happen about having rules is protect me. I mean, and it'll hold me back too. So if I don't have that, if I don't use some creativity and really think about my rules and adapt them to the environment and keep moving forward, if they're holding me back and there's something better, then you need to change and adapt to the new environment. So, aho.
Jeff.
All right. Yeah, when I first read this lesson, it had a hard time relating to it because I have no military experience, and it was specifically about battle decisions. But after reading it several times and thinking about it through the week, I learned that I could imagine that situation. I can imagine being the risk-averse colonel who chose not to act. I can also imagine being the junior officer who was willing to take a risk. You know, from his perspective, I think he didn't think it was a choice. He felt like the situation demanded action. And that led me to ask myself, a bunch of questions, imagining that scenario or one like it. Am I trying to defend a position that is indefensible? How do I interpret my orders? When do I do what I'm told? The societal default now is just do what I say and don't ask questions, which I think is pretty ineffective if you really want performance. When I receive new information, do I consider it? Do I choose to remain unprepared? And does this lead to intention without action or action without intention? Do I choose to reject possible solutions? Is there any value in having a great defense if you have no offense? I think both are required. Do I understand the reason that I'm here? This would be my purpose, defining my mission, and sets my intention. And then all the strategies, tactics, knowledge, and training that come later will be in alignment to achieve a well-defined goal. And then it's just a matter of, doing the work as best I can. And that's kind of what I took from the story. And then the exercises, exercise 2 stood out to me, which was identify one of your unit's operational rules of action, and then imagine a situation where you'd need to adapt the rule in order to preserve its greater spirit. Obviously, I'm not part of a military unit, but I am training a new fire pilot this month. He's a great guy. He's been training and flying for years. He's got a lot of experience. And now he's learning the specific skill set required to begin his first year of flying missions in the tactical fire environment. And he's got an oral examination and a flight check coming up. So we're trying to prepare him for that and ultimately prepare him for the year that's ahead of him. So one of the rules that I teach and believe in is don't lose sight of the target once you've acquired it. And that's specifically a flying rule, but it also led me back to my own intentions, knowing from time to time that I lose sight of my target, even though I know I must keep it in sight. Another rule that we teach and we think is critical is if I can't see through the smoke, then I don't fly through it, because there may be a mountain hidden inside that smoke. Why would I break my rules? It would have to be an extreme case because I know the potential risks associated with breaking them. But, for example, is there an orphanage on fire in there? If possible, if so, we may decide to take that additional risk. If it's just rocks and trees, we're probably not going to do it. So it would be a risk reward decision. My new pilot is learning many things. He's super excited. But as a new guy, he has my authority to break all of my rules to satisfy his personal mission. And I assigned him his personal mission for the next 24 months. And it's super simple. His mission is to survive the experience, don't crash the airplane, and don't hurt anyone on the ground. This is his prime directive. And this allows him to break all the other rules, the government rules, my rules, all of them, just to achieve this one thing. And that allows me to feel good about sending him out into the world, knowing that he doesn't know all that he needs to know, but he knows all that I can give him in the time that we've had together. So the last thing I want is for him to get hurt or hurt someone else. So that was a huge aha moment. The trader's exercise, trading your plan with discipline or not. I've been trading for a number of years. This question always exists, and you question yourself, you question your rules. But this exercise, my word from last week was believe. So I asked myself, do I believe in my plan? If I believe in my plan, why would I want to deviate from it? And one of the things a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I heard Ken tell the story about the young child with the simple soccer plan. And that resonated. So, I basically decided that I was going to be the young child with the simple soccer plan. Do I need anything more than this? I believe that all I need is a simple, proven plan that is good enough to trade. I think I have that. I must have the will to do the work as best I can to prepare and, trade the plan. I have to have the discipline to execute every trade in the moment and adapt to changing conditions, which would be stop and reverse, something I never I didn't have that skill before, so that's one of the crucial things that I'm learning and doing now, which is a game changer, by the way. When you give up on your idea of what the market should do and just go with it and get paid, it's a great feeling. I can be wrong and still make money. I realized the biggest aha moment of this trader exercise is I realized for the first time that the pilot part of me would never approve any trading plan that was less than 99% accurate. Because in aviation, we measure time between failures as occurrences per 100,000 hours. So obviously in the aviation business, when you're putting people's lives in your airplane, you want as almost as perfect a system as you can get. But that doesn't exist in the markets. So I just decided the pilot part of me doesn't get to make that decision. However, he's more than happy to execute the trades. Like, he loves pushing the buttons, right? And he's pretty good at that. He can watch the screen, push the button. So that's his job. The manager, CEO part of me makes the decision on the trading plan. And then the last thing was, the plan alone is not enough. You know, planning without action is worthless. And I heard a quote years ago. I have a whole book of quotes. I'm constantly writing them down in my journal. But the best idea in the world without execution is worth $20. That's what they'll give you for it, because that's just a plan, right? But a simple plan that works combined with flawless execution could be worth $20 million. And it's been proven over and over again. So give the razor away for free and then sell them blades for the rest of their life. It's not a complex plan, but it's made a lot of people a lot of money for a long time. So that was kind of my work for the week. My work in progress is just to do the work in accordance with my plan. Plan, prepare, execute, and assess. I'm trying to identify and eliminate my errors. And also at the same time, just to add balance, to identify what is working and do more of that. It's pretty easy to just get down on yourself and focus only on the mistakes you made during the week. I think during the assess phase, just like we do in aviation, it needs to be a well-rounded picture. Talk about what went wrong, but also talk about what went right and what you can do better. And then just keep on working. We're not going to do the assessment and then just quit because we weren't perfect. And then I'm also halfway through creating a knee board form to use as my daily trade log, because it's just muscle memory for me. In the airplane all day long, I'm writing down all the important information on my knee board. And I've been doing this for 30 years. I'm going to take that muscle memory and that I already have, and that's going to be my written daily trade log, so that I'll make sure that I capture the things that I need during the heat of the moment. I think that's all I got for the day, guys. Aho.
I guess I'm next. I'm the last one. I was a little bit like Jeff. I had some challenges with the first part of the exercise, but it got me thinking. I know some of you have not been in the military. I have, like many other people. In my case, it was mandatory, because in France in those days, it was mandatory. I was fortunate enough that I didn't really serve in the military. I mean, in the action part of it, but I was in the background doing things so that individuals could have food on the table. I was assigned to the officers' mess. I was assigned to their accounting department, and I came into it with a big mess that I had to fix. And I had a lieutenant who did not like change. He wanted things to be done the old way. So I had to use, and I did not realize this until this week, but I had to use my creativity to get the job done. And it was kind of a challenge. And I decided at that time, I was young, I was 22 years old. I decided to go over the lieutenant's head, and I went all the way to the top, and I started to get the changes done, because in France in those days, military service was 1 year, and it was I got part of the process done. And the irony of the whole thing is the day before I was discharged, I was called in the office of the colonel of the base, and he wanted me to enlist full time to finish the job that I started. And I declined because I had other obligation. I had a fiance waiting for me in the U.S., and I couldn't be in two places at the same time. But he was kind enough to invite me to the officers' ball, and I wasn't even an officer, so I took that as an honor. And I never did attend the ball because I was back in the U.S. at that time, dealing with my fiancée and her sick mother. So it made me realize that everything that I did over the following several decades was in a way wrong. I never thought I was creative, but I was, which was good. For the other part of the exercise for trading, as you probably remember from last week and the week before, I never traded with rules. So I decided to do the opposite. I started to trade with rules. And I ended up putting together this week a trading plan, and I also put together a trading journal using some of the information that I got from Ken Long and Griffin and Ken. And I was impressed when I looked at those that my strategies were more profitable than I thought. And is there any way, Ken, for me to share my screen? And if there is, do you know how to do that? I mean, how am I supposed to do that? Just
Yeah, you should be able to share the screen now. You should have a little button somewhere that allows you to do that.
no, I don't see the button.
You should have you look for a little ellipsis, or I just made you a co-host.
I have a breakout room reaction app, whiteboard.
You should see something. I mean, on the same menu bar that I have, it says share screen.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, but you know what? I have multitude of screens. So how do I do when you have multitude of screens?
Well, if you have windows open on one screen, you should be able to. We're actually seeing the whole monitor.
Are you seeing the whole monitor?
Yep.
Okay. So what I did is, so you're seeing my spreadsheet?
Yes, sir.
Good, good. Wow, I'm making some progress, guys. I'm learning how to do. So since I have three different accounts, I ended up doing three sheets, and this is what I came up with. I came up with the total R, the number of trades, the total R, the expectancy, the SQN, the win rate, average win, average loss, and I thought I was doing pretty good. It's due for improvement because those losses are kind of big and I have to reduce those. But it seems that I have a system that's profitable, which is good. So, except on this
Let me
one,
just notice, at the risk of violating the True Story Circle principles, when you look at that little performance table in the middle,
yes,
I look at that and immediately look for. Uh, I want you to add worst loss and
okay,
best win and worst loss.
okay,
Right. So what I looked at, if that were on there, the first thing I look at any loss is greater than 1R. But then I look at what is the coin flip story here. Well, the win rate is 0.58. That's almost 0.6. That means the loss rate is 0.4. So that's a 3-2 coin flip. Right? It's an unfair coin in your advantage, 3-2, and the average win to average loss. Let's see, 0.6 to minus 2.2. So we got to work on that.
yes,
Right.
yes.
So
For that one, yes,
right, because I could tolerate it if it was the other way. And
so you're saying,
okay. You've just flipped it. That was on the other side. The first one I was looking at, it was a 3-2 win rate that had a 2-1 payoff.
yes,
Go back to the very first one that you showed. Yeah, so I look at that system there and I say 58% win rate, that's 2-1, that's a 3-2. Average win to average loss is 2-1. So you could sustain that forever. Now, if I was Las Vegas and I was considering whether or not to invest in some slot machine, and it came in and showed those numbers, and it said, this is a machine that 1 million people want to play. And it has a 3-2 win rate, and it pays you 2-1. How many of those machines do I buy and install? Well, I replace every other. I almost want to replace every other game we play, but you got to have a little bit of cater to everybody's interest. But that's pretty good numbers. Go ahead, go to the next one. Do you have one that shows a roll up?
yeah, this one is bad.
No, it's not acceptable.
Okay,
Needs improvement. Notice what I did with reframing.
yes,
Bad is an endpoint. Not acceptable leads to action. Needs work leads to action. So this one is let's see, win rate is 3-1. I call that 2-1. Average win to average loss. So we got to fix the average loss, and then we got to investigate the wins to see were we prematurely getting a high win rate means with a low average win means you're probably cutting them short so that you can feel the emotion of having a win, which then
that is
leads to
correct.
say, but you've got double the size of acceptable losses, but a low loss rate. What that suggests is maybe you're holding on to the losing trades because you're hoping it's going to become a winner so that you can feel the joy of the win, even if it was a 0.6 win. So that means
Okay,
you're staying too long because you're seeking the joy of the win, and you can tolerate watching it lose as long as you don't exit. You don't even feel like it's a loss because you haven't exited yet until your own despair and disgust make you exit, and then it's a 2.2, and then you get to feel bad about having let it go that far. So we just got to get in front of all that emotional processing.
Okay.
and adhere to the rules and say, look, I've got something that has a nice win rate. This is not a bad system if you could trim the average loss from 2.2 to 1.
Okay.
Even because if you could take not more than a 1 hour loss as your worst loss, then you didn't even have to do anything different with the wins, and you got a really strong system because you get 3 wins at 0.6 to 1 loss at 1 point, worst is 1.0. That's already a rock solid system.
Okay.
Imagine you went into a lottery store, or just it is the slot machine. 3/4 of the time, I win 50 cents. One time, I lose $1. Right? You'll play that one
Yes.
all day. So that's what I would say about that. That's not a. So what you just showed is not a bad system. It just needs tuning. We got to adjust a couple parameters. So it's not a bad system. There's no bad dogs. There's just not trained.
And that's one of the things that I've learned, by going through the trades of this month, is that I have a good system because my rain rate is like you just said, Ken. I have to do some fine tuning.
Yeah.
So basically, to end
I
the
wouldn't
thing.
even call it fine tuning. I would say drastic shift.
Okay.
Stop
Yeah.
taking losses greater than 1. Period. That's not fine tuning. That's a flat ass rule.
Yeah.
Don't crash the airplane. Don't land on people below you. Come back alive. That's not fine tuning. That's, to borrow Jeff's term, that's prime directives.
That is correct. Well, thank you for your input.
Yeah.
And
Back to you.
that's basically all I have for this week because I had to take care of sick family and aho.
So I'll ask for your forgiveness for violating the principle of the true story circle, but that leads
You're forgiven.
That leads me to, well, it's everybody in this room, and let me hit the tones, and I'll do my piece. So one of the things the samurai sword makers know is that when that ingot comes out of the fire, you got to start folding it and hitting it with the hammer while it's hot. And so this was a case of agreements versus rules. The agreement is don't give advice or judge or process or recommend. I hope I wasn't doing that. What I wanted to do was illustrate and demonstrate and show some things on those charts, and it felt correct. And so based on the trust I have in you guys understanding my intention, I felt like I was within the agreement of the room. Now, if that was a rule that was indiscriminately applied, I would have, the Chuck Barris would have come out and hit the gong on the Gong Show and stopped me, right? But this is based on agreements and not on rules. And in my judgment, this was within the spirit of the room. Let me go through my my story from this week. So I'm trying to change the Army's mind. I'm trying to change the Army to be better. And if you want to change the Army, you got to change the leader's mind. And where you change the leader's mind is in the classroom, because that is a safe, trusted, truthful space, we hope, that leads to transformation. So the formula is safety, trust, truth, opportunity. And that opportunity may or may not pay off, but you need those three preconditions before you get the fourth one. So safety, trust, truth, and opportunity. That's one of the formulas for true storytelling circles. So I have linked together for maximum sustainable rate of learning 3 bodies of knowledge in this course. Fletcher's Creativity, Boji's True Storytelling Circle, and my Technical Trading. When you put those 3 things together, you have the opportunity for accelerated learning, because Fletcher's work, and I'm going to quote, I think it was Tom said, I had a little trouble with the vignette, but then it got me thinking. That's all the Fletcher vignettes are supposed to do, is to take you out of your normal frame and put you in a minimum viable story that causes you to think in a different way. That's all it has to do, and that's all it does. So lack of military experience actually opens you up to faster, direct connection to a problem to solve or a point of view to take. And that's what strengthens the musculature of creativity. And then you can bring that better fitness into whatever other work in progress that you have. So it's just going to the gym and working out, then you're better at whatever else you're doing physically. Well, in our military classroom, though, that means that if I want to do this, I have to, guys, monkeying around with things that don't necessarily seem directly applicable to the existential problem at hand, and that takes some trust on their part to go through the experience with a promise from me that it'll make them better at the other thing they're really trying to do. So there's an element of trust in that. Now, we can demonstrate with evidence that this is a winning trade. It pays off. It works. But there's initial trust you have to overcome. Hey, we like this traditional way of teaching creativity, and so we just want to do that. Why? In fact, my senior leaders in the college who are making curriculum decisions, not the most senior general, but some senior leaders who are making decisions about curriculum in our university have been heard to say, why are you bothering with creativity? You're just selling wolf tickets if you think that stuff works. That's a guy with a PhD saying that. And my initial impulse was to go up and ask him, are you a serious person? Is that your professional opinion about what we're doing? Based on what research and data and literature review that you did, that you can say that in your professional capacity about what we're doing? And he doesn't want to get into that gun battle. But what I did instead was play the longer game. So I got one of my students who wrote his lesson paper on rewriting the curriculum of the platoon leaders course for the bomb demolition squads down at Hurlburt Airfield. They teach all the different services their explosive ordnance demolition, the guys in the bomb squad that defuse bombs. These are serious people. I know the battalion commander down there. He's one of our trading clients. I've known him for years. And he got interested in creativity, what we were doing. He said he wanted to try it in his school, so I got an EOD officer in my classroom and said, how would you like to redo that curriculum down there for that battalion commander instead of whatever else we were going to do? He said, fine. So we're doing that. He issued those guys a set of lessons ready to teach. They're through 2 of the 6, and in the plan. The senior non-commissioned officers, the senior sergeants. Now, these are guys that have been bomb squad for 20 years. That's all they do. These are serious people. After just 2 lessons, they are already taking on the challenge of designing and delivering the remaining lessons. And they said, quote, it's changing the way we're looking at problem solving. Imagine what it takes to convince a bomb squad disposal guy to say that after just 2 experiences. So the battalion commander down there wrote a nice feedback note and said, this is what we're thinking. And he asked me and Fletcher to comment on it. So we now have a dialogue about the co-creation of their lessons on creativity down there in the school in real time. And he got a nice feedback from his brigade commander, the full colonel, and then the chief of ordnance, the general who's in charge of all mechanics, ammunition technicians, and bomb squad disposals in the world, who is very interested and wants to scale these ideas to all the other schools that he is responsible for. His boss is our 3-star general on our post, who's responsible for all Army schools. So what I did was made a nice little write-up about that whole experience of the development of creativity, what we would call in stride, a living curriculum with co-creation by students and faculty, with just a little bit of guidance from us in our school, helping to outreach. And I said to the 3-star general, this is everything that our leadership development white paper says we're aiming for, is leaders who can respond and adapt and overcome. And this is an example of what can happen when we have room to work as part of our outreach program, rather than filling every day with drone work and memorizing lists and words on a page. This is living curriculum about creativity, and not just looking at slides that are talking about creativity. There's a whole world of difference between looking at slides on a screen that talk about something and having experiential learning moments where you are doing something and then learning about it, right? So do first and learn. So I sent that note up to him and I said, this is really powerful stuff. And I think you ought to give one of your 3-star general coins and a note of congratulations to the leaders in our college who have helped us make this program possible, and that they should be awarded that in public. And here are the names of the guys that have been helping us with this. And that's going to be the guys in our college who have been actively resisting the creativity project. I'm going to make them get up on a stage in front of the college and receive an award for their support for this creativity project that they did everything in their power to stifle. The taste of irony on that will be delicious, and only a handful of people will even know how painful it will be to them to receive that award. But I will help them, frame it in a certain way. Say, hey, it was really important for you to be skeptical about what we were doing, because that's what drove us to ensure that our data and reasoning and theoretical base was bulletproof, because we respect your professional opinion so much, which is not really true, but true enough. So that's playing the long game of setting conditions. And really what it is a testimony to the power of these ideas. Really, if you just go through them, the experience of doing things and then making it your own and then drawing your own insights and then building on that with confidence, trust, and action is what leads to the accelerated learning. The Fletcher creativity exercises, all they have to do is, but then that made me start thinking. Done. The trusted circle and the crosstalk is where you're getting 5 times the amount of insights from the same lessons that you were engaged with directly, and then you hear everybody else's experiences, and it expands your own experience base, and then those experiences are personally meaningful to you, and it's as if you had lived that yourself because it resonates at a deep level. So you're getting 6 times the level of payoff just by being willing to suspend disbelief and to engage in deep listening and respecting the courage that it takes to offer stories like Damien just did. Hey, I'm going to show you the stats on I was doing my best and here's what I got, and it's a bad system. One little reframe of that says that's not a bad system. It's a system that needs refinement, tuning, adaptation, located in a different part of the curve. It's a system that'll work well when you put it in conditions where it's designed to work. So there's just, with a little bit of work on that, we're going to be in great shape. Well, the reason to engage in creativity is not because of the immediate idea that you get for the problem you're currently in. The reason to engage in creative effort is the same reason we engage in research. Not because of the immediate answer to the problem we had or the question we asked, although sometimes that works, but it is the habit of mind that continually asks questions and looks for more and pushes boundaries, and it's like popcorn popping. The second and third order effects of teaching just enough of the creativity stuff to get those guys working on it in the classroom, inspiring them to do more, that's where the payoff of this thing was. Is that now these guys, those officers that are engaged in the co-creation of their learning at the EOD school are actively involved in their own learning, and when they go back out to the field, they will have evidence that they can do this and that they can instantly implement that in their unit. They don't have to pull up slides and try to remember what the professor said about that list of words. They have their own direct learning experience, hands-on, about what it was like to do the work, and then that gives them the confidence to propagate that in the rest of the unit. That's how you change the Army. You change the Army's mind, the mind of its leaders in the classroom with the way you do the work, and you aim at co-creation and ownership at the rate of performance. And if it takes 10 times to do it, then it takes 10 times to do it. Hey, I only gained 20% of the knowledge that you just issued in that last session. Hey, go ahead and take a look at your annual performance in your 401ks or whatever investment. If you could get a 20% return on invested on each iteration, how happy would you be with all the time, all day, forever? So every advance is adding energy to the flywheel, and the flywheel's giving you that moment of power that you can do work immediately. So we want to keep that thing turning, and we keep it turning by learning and doing and documenting and reflecting. So I wanted to say that about being thankful that you let me give a little guidance or observation in the True Story Circle with Damien's work. So just a quick recap of my notes from your words. The step-by-step process of framing functions and then analyzing backwards for understanding. It's like you live life going forward, you understand it looking backward. You need both of those. Sweat saves blood. Yep. That comes from Vegetius, the Roman historian, who said, if you want to prepare for war, sweat saves blood in training. What I think Ernie was talking about the SIV. All right, sorry about that. I'm back. What was the last thing I said before this thing disrupted?
Ken, you started cutting out at the very beginning of this slide for me.
Okay. All right, so the step-by-step process of framing forward for decisions and analyzing backwards for understanding, that goes along with the line of you live life going forward, but you understand it looking backward. So we need both of those points of view in order to be in the mindful moment. Right? Sweat saves blood comes from Vegetius, who said, if you want peace, prepare for war. He's the Roman historian. We say we live by those principles, hard work and training. On the SIVB discussion, or SVIB, I should say, Silicon Valley Investment Bank, since I don't look at the news during the day, I didn't know any of the fact that it was melting down, but it was tradable that day because of the size of the gap and how much it stood out as a collapse, and it became an opportunity unencumbered by a deliberate plan to look at financial banks and then try to anticipate it. No, just responding to a change in the environment. When the earth shakes, you notice it. You should do something about it, like get away from a building. What are our rules? There were some really good insights today. I use that same idea in two ways. One of them, for our lesson plans at our college, I asked the boss and what his philosophy is the lesson plan that was written by the author that our department's delivering. So we have one guy writes the lesson, it gets approved, and then everybody teaches it. And I asked him to think, is that lesson plan a law or is it a brochure? Is it a guide of what to do if you don't know what to do? Or what's the moral imperative? How much freedom do I have? As long as I get to the educational outcomes, am I free to do what I want to do? And then what's the judgment that I must demonstrate before I vary from do I have to get your permission, or do I have the authority to act and then advise? So that gets into philosophies of teaching and freedom in the classroom and whatnot that's important. So that was on my mind as I was thinking about whether or not to jump in on Damien's presentation, to strike while the iron was hot, while he was in the middle of the emotional feeling of showing what he thought was a bad system and yet persisted courageously in doing that. I wanted to make the adjustment in wording and framing right there and then in the moment so I didn't lose that moment. That's what moved me to do that, and I felt that was within the agreements of what we're trying to do, in the spirit of what we're trying to do, even if it wasn't in a formal document of agreements. But that's also why I asked for forgiveness. And then that becomes sort of a social norm that we might adopt. As if you see that kind of an opportunity with respect, do it. In China, that would be the discussion of Mencius versus the legalist school, and that is, do you want rule by good law or do you want rule by good men? The legalists wanted rule by good laws. It was their position that you could define everything ahead of time, put it into law, and then with no wiggle room interpret the law and the behavior and then make a judgment, as if you could anticipate every circumstance and make right or wrong a matter of absolute law independent of context. Mencius took the position, preferred rule by good men who had moved by the spirit of excellence and duty to others and could interpret the spirit of the law in the circumstance to achieve justice. So that's very much like what we look at with our own personal set of rules. Am I bound by those? By what authority and by what commitment to that, obedience to that rules? And that's a choice. You get to decide what that relationship of your rules to your behavior and your judgment is. And there's good reasons to follow them and resist an impulse. And there may be good reasons to resist the rule and apply the impulse. As long as we are coming home alive, not crashing the airplane, not landing on other people's heads, the prime directive as sort of the guide, as long as we remember Cooper's rules, protect the goal, get the ball, go to the goal, shoot and score, as a guiding values to make the final wise judgment. That's always artful and personal interpretation. As Tom, what does it mean to say, when I see the market idling? I think I know exactly what you mean, but I would say, is that sideways quiet channel? And what are the criteria that you would use to classify, when I see the market idling, this is what I do? If that turns out to lead to very good trades, then you want an automated way that alerts you to those portions or sectors or segments or candidate targets inside a market that are idling. That's how you get to the idea eventually of the compound critical state in the sniper, which says we're looking for not a market that's idling, but where the location and the look-back periods, 3 each, make it more likely to make large surprise moves. Plus, it has a volatility condition that makes it prone to make large surprise moves. The combination of location and volatility leads to a market condition that we can scan for broadly and then keep our activity in those symbols that are inside that zone, so every response and adaptation will be better. But that's one of the ways that you learn to listen, is that when you describe what you're doing in the form of a personal rule, I'm listening for, how do I turn that into bulletproof code that allows me to identify those moments? Because then we can actually check to see how good the intuition is, how good the rule is, because we can test it under reasonable conditions. I remember Robert Gardner's rule, rest in peace. I would rather be on the outside of the trade wishing I was in than on the inside of the trade wishing I was out. And that has everything to do with when you see an opportunity and you make a decision not to get in there, the consoling thought is, well, I would rather be on the outside of the opportunity not taking it than being on the inside of the opportunity wishing I hadn't. And so that helps you regulate the impulse to act, not eliminate, but allows you to put it into context. So, hey, remember, 90% of these things probably fail, so be measured. Measure twice, cut once. I like Jeff's kneeboard approach. That's what I use 5x8 cards for. I carry those around with a pencil and a little alligator clip so that I'm always prepared to make sketches or notes or comments for later refinement. And that, for me, the 5x8 card gives me enough room to work. It's portable, but not so much room that I can be spendthrift. It's just the right size for me. So those are the comments I wanted to make. You guys did some amazing work in there. Let me check. I was gratified to hear Tom say that these exercises are helping him with manage the fear of missing out in the example of the Anderson regression line stretch. And Ernie's changing the mode in which he receives information. Just the difference that you got from closing your eyes and how much different the experience was and how many more things you were noticing because of turning off one of the modes of information. That's what happens and happened to me when I turn off the news and I look just at price. I still find things like SVIB on Thursday, which were tradable, but I was not encumbered by having to process a bunch of news about it and try to make sense out of all these incomplete reports that are filled with the first report's always wrong. So, but the price is always right. It does exactly what it's doing. So, so that's everything I wanted to cover on that. That's my work in progress. I'm going to hit the tones to move us into the foyer, and I would ask you to listen carefully to the sounds of the word that comes to mind as we go into the foyer, and then I'll ask you what that word was. Here we go.
Listen.
Tom.
Process.
Chunlong.
Mission.
Jeff.
Breathe.
Damien.
Progress.
Measure. All right, this will move us into coffee talk and we can talk about whatever we want and check out whenever we're ready individually. So here we go. Good work as always, fellas. Really nice work today. Free play. Jeff.
Yeah. So last week, you offered some amazing insights for me, and you made the comment that here's a year's worth of work for you right here, and I think I mentioned on Tuesday that I got about 10% of that first time through. So I went back and replayed the video. I ended up having to pause it to take notes.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think I captured it all. But throughout the week, that was the greatest thing because my interpretation of that was like a throwing down of the gauntlet, right? And we all do that. And as an aviation instructor, I've done that many times, although I never realized it. But there comes a point where you just have to say, here's the line or here's the material and the rest is up to you. So that was tremendously valuable. And I definitely think if I can do all that in a year, I'll be feeling really good. So thank you for that.
Well, it's the flywheel effect for learning. It's just the habit. And then it's just, Vince Lombardi used to say they never lost a game up in Green Bay. It just they ran out of time. But they knew that the things that they were doing would win games. And sometimes they did, And so they always stayed true exactly to who they were. And, the Green Bay power sweep was really a thing of beauty. It was zone blocking, and the running back would run to daylight. And you put your big ones up against their big ones, and you hit them as hard as you can and try to make them move one way or the other. Very jiu-jitsu. If he goes left, running back, I'm going to take him left, and you run to the right. You run to daylight. And so on that basis, they would just pitch back to, Paul Horning or Jim Taylor and run to daylight, and you could not stop them. That's what it was. Can you stop us? Can you? Let's see. So
my little paragraph after taking the notes and thinking about it, but I kind of, synthesized the whole learning experience like this, like you're a guide, and you said, you listened to my story when we met at the crossroads and you said, hey, I know where you want to go and I've been there before. So let me draw you a map on my little pad here. And this is a good way. This is one good way to get there because I've traveled this path and you were generous enough to give me a map, right? To guide me on my journey, but you're not going to walk it with me, right? You've already done it. So it's up to me to walk the path, but you've indicated where the tough spots might be and which roads not to take. And that's kind of how I synthesized that whole. It's really nice.
That's that Sherpa mindset we may have talked about last week or the week before. The whole idea that a culture of helping people self-actualize. That's what Sherpas do. They also know what that's like because they're walking the path, carrying loads and so forth. But that's kind of the same spirit. And in our little dojo by the side of the path, that's what we hope to create in the community of practice. It's a place to work, study, reflect, rest, recreation, research, all of the R words that go into the roundabout of the true story circle. That's sort of the spirit that motivates that. So yeah, I'm glad you're finding that to be the case. Yeah.
Aho, I'll
Aho.
pass the torch.
Me too. Aho.
Ken, does little Cooper know how much he's helped us?
I will make that apparent to him because we start our practices next week. His parents asked for me to be his coach on the next age group, so I'm going to coach a U6 and a U8 this next one so that I could get some of my players back because they had so much fun. So yeah, I mean Cooper is legendary. You don't know how many times I've told that story to senior generals in my army. I tell them that story about Cooper. When Andrew Barry interviewed me on his podcast, that was one of my. I picked that story. That was a huge one for me. Protect the goal. Hey, coach, I have a plan. All right, Cooper, what's your plan? It's a good plan. Now we got to execute. Yeah, the $20 plan and the $20 million return on execution. That's why Drucker said, execution eats strategy for lunch. He's right. That's why Harvard says, stop planning and make better decisions by pulling forward the information that you need to make the better decision, which includes information about your last decisions and how they played out. That's the trading journal. And learning to draw insights from what that journal tells you, which is Damien's lesson today about how to look at those statistics and performance numbers. That's why you got to add the section on the best win and the worst loss to that, and then use that for management. And you'll be in great shape. Aho.
Well, one of the things that I realized it beforehand, but it sank very deeply into me today, and I would consider this a aha moment, is I have to stop beating myself down. And that was the biggest thing that I got out of today's class, is that, I have to learn to be a lot more positive. I have a good system. We just need to do, some major shifting, and everything will be okay. So it was kind of an eye opener, and I want to thank Ken for jumping in. I was hoping he was going to, and he did the right thing. So thank you for your input. It was very much appreciated.
Well, the image I'd like you to have in your mind is so this is a little speech somewhere. I think it's in the course too, but you'll see it again. It's the way of the sword and the way of the bowl, and the way of the sword and bowl. So I talk about trading as just make one bowl, carve one bowl, repeat, and refine that technique. Use your sword, your sharp edge, to carve that. Don't cut your finger off. The way of the sword is to use the sword properly, to make the sword, to sharpen it, to not cut your fingers off. That's the way of action. When you carve the bowl and it's perfectly made, Now you have an empty bowl in which we can pour the gifts of reflection. So the way of action leads to the way of reflection. And then what is it that you are reflecting on? The making of the bowl and the use of the sword, and the making of the sword, and the person who's making the sword and bowl. So each one, the sword creates the bowl improves the bowl and sword improve the human, who improves the sword and bowl. That's a virtuous circle, right? So when you're thinking about the sword, think about what it looked like just before he started to make it. It looked like 10 cubic yards of dirt, iron ore and pellets and coke and charcoal and a fire pit and a hammer. That's what it looked like. But that's the sword in that stage of its development. It's not a bad sword yet. It's just not, it needs some work. That's all. It's the same sword at the end of that. The only thing that was different was the energy, effort, focus, intention that was put into it, the process of becoming. So it's not a bad thing or a good thing. It just is exactly what it is. It's a work in progress. So as you reflect on the sword, the way of the sword is everything about the sword and the making of the sword and how you do that, the skill and the craft, and the relationship between you and your tool. And then the way of the bowl is the same thing. It's the making of it, the purpose of it, your craftsmanship, the tools that you use to make the bowl. And then the work on yourself, the sword and the bowl are the artifacts that you use to refine yourself through them into that harmonious whole. That's the way of the sword, the way of the bowl, the way of the sword and bowl. That is work in progress. That's the difference between jutsu and do. Jutsu is the theory, do is the doing of it. So we think of judo is the doing in competition, you and I shining together with each other. Jiu-jitsu is the science and theory behind the techniques. And it takes both of those. Right. So, aho to that. Tom.
Yeah, that was a lot of information. I'm just trying to take everything in and process it all. But yeah, it seems that it's having more of a calming effect. I'm looking at things a little bit more differently, rather than looking at all results and just focusing on the process. And it's really a great course. It's helped me a lot.
Well, you're noticing too, the second time around, there's so much more, and that's not surprising. Ernie sees that on individual lessons, but it's also happens at the course level. You're a different person taking that lesson than you were the first time you went through it. And that's what language is like for us as monkeys. Our language is the tool that shapes the user. You think you're shaping the language, but the language is also shaping you. When the tool recursively is changing the tool maker, who's changing the tool, that is what sets us apart from a lot of other animals. It's the reflexive nature of the work that we do, which is why the reflection, the assessment in plan, prepare, execute, assess, the assessment is the most important part if you survive execution, right? You should always think of, here I am getting ready to go into this trade and I'm putting my head in a guillotine. Is that what I'm doing? Yeah, well, if you're trading at that level of risk where if it goes against you, it's over, yeah, then that's what you're doing. You're putting your head in the guillotine and hoping the rope breaks or the blade ain't sharp or that you're faster than a blade that's falling or that you'll get a stay of execution before he yanks the cord. That should be in your mind as you think about the risk that you're taking on the trade. No, I really believe that guy told me that the blade was not sharp or there's a little blade stop in there that's going to stop it from cutting my head off. Okay, well, how strong is your belief in that? And who's got skin in the game? You know what I mean? That's why I have such a sense of existential relief when I get to no lose plus dinner for two. Because I feel like no matter how much I'm risking, I always feel like I'm putting my neck in that guillotine. Or my finger. Which finger can you afford to lose? Put that one in there. So I think about all my capital organically like that. Because I have that. So as soon as I can get to no lose plus dinner for two, my core capital is safe. And if I can use markets money instead of my core capital, that's even better. That's one less degree of risk. But I always think of it in terms of those conditions. The guillotines, there it is. And so I'm always in a state of misery on every single trade until I can get my risk out. And then it becomes a science project. That's why that is such an important point of distinction for me. You hear that on every nightly podcast when I go through the sniper trades of the day and all that other stuff. That's been the case for 30 years for me. And yeah, so it's not a happy thought. It's what you do when you go to work. But that reminds, with that mental image in my mind, I never am thoughtless about how much risk I'm taking. So I'll hold on that. Well, I have us at 11:58, and so I want to respect your time. I'm going to check out here, and wish you the best. And I'm going to stop the recording. And I'll if you're ready to check out, we can check out here. I'll keep the room open if you want to talk with each other, but I'm going to stop the recording and do my checkout. So thanks for a great session. Lots of stuff to ponder. I may have to go take a nap, finish my nap, and process it in the deep level there. I'm actually experimenting with these little goggles. They just fit right over your eyeball. It's an eyeball massager or whatever. It has heat and cooling, and it has vibration. The vibration, I have a hard time with it. My eyes are so sensitive. It really is discomforting. But the 1 minute warmth and 2 minutes of cool, and it cycles through there in a 10-minute routine. Boy, does that bring you here and now. I may go up and do that because I get into instant relaxation, and boy, is it any good. And it's made by Renfo. It's under $100. It's pretty interesting. Anyway, I'll share that with you. Anyway, aho, that's my checkout, and wish you guys well.